Good afternoon, and welcome to day 6 of the 43rd Toronto International Film Festival. Welcome. My name is Dorota Lech. I'm from programming, and it is my honor to be introducing Rashida Jones's and Alan Hicks's QUINCY. To begin, we would like to acknowledge that today's event is taking place on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community. This film is eligible for the Grolsch People's Choice Award, as well as the Grolsch People's Choice Documentary Award. You can vote for as many films as you like in the festival at tiff.net/vote. We would like to thank Netflix for providing us with the film. And thank you to Screen Australia for their generous support. Rashida Jones studied religion and philosophy at Harvard. She is an actor, writer, producer, and director for film and television. QUINCY is her latest film. Alan Hicks was born in Wollongong, Australia. He studied jazz at William Patterson University in New Jersey. He directed the documentary feature Keep On Keepin' On about Clark Terry, trumpet player and mentor to Quincy Jones. QUINCY is his latest film. He's so rad. You are in for such a treat. Let's welcome him to the stage.
All right, g'day everybody. Thank you so much for coming down and making the time to watch our little film. Just a little bit about the film before we kick into it. It was a 6-year process in all for the movie from the inception to now, and we travelled around with Quincy for 3 full years of filming to 25 different countries. And I'll get into the nitty gritty after. I'm doing a Q&A after the film. But another little thing that's good to know is that all the music in the film is Quincy's music. So it's going to be a bit of a party in here. But anyways, thank you so much for coming. Really hope you enjoy it. I co-directed it with Rashida, Quincy's daughter, and hopefully you guys dig it. All right. Cheers. Thank you very much.
True story. I tried to learn how to moonwalk so I could come out on the stage that way, but I failed. Ladies and gentlemen, the incredible Alan Hicks.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. What a fantastic film. That was electric. I'm going to let that sink in for everyone and ask a few questions of my own, and then we'll take it to the audience.
No worries.
So we know Rashida's connection with Quincy, but can you tell us, when did your fascination begin?
Well, I'm originally a musician, and growing up in Australia, some of my first recordings that I ever got were Quincy Jones records. And I eventually moved to New York to study music, and that led me to Clark Terry, the trumpet player. And I started playing in Clark's band, and that led me to my first film, Keep On Keepin' On. And Clark was also Quincy Jones's first teacher. So that's my connection with Quincy in a roundabout, quick sort of way. And once I finished that film, Rashida and I were good friends, and she asked if I could direct it with her. And then, we kicked into it.
You mentioned at the beginning that the film took 6 years to make. Can you tell us a little bit about that process? Because I imagine once you drop the name Quincy Jones, doors open, or was that not the case?
Oh, no, it's... so Rashida was filming, while I was still filming the end of Keep On Keepin' On, she had a little 5D camera, and so some of the stuff in the very beginning of the movie is just Rashida just trying to capture what she can. And then I came on after the 2 years, and we did 4 more years of filming. So we traveled to 25 countries. We had a full-time crew, full-time camera crew, so we were able to, he was so into us traveling with him that he would call us up and say, well, I'm going to China in 2 days and you guys would love it there. And so we'd have to engage the crew, get everybody ready, and just all of a sudden we're in China, and we'd come home for a couple of days, and then he'd say, "Hi man, there's this trip to Dubai happening. You guys have got to check that place out." And so that happened for years, and trying to keep up with him was one of the most difficult things. But he was such a good sport about the openness. We would start filming in the morning, and we would be filming all day until he would go to bed, and he was just cool.
So how much footage do you actually have of Quincy?
We shot 800 hours of footage of just over that course of that 3-year period, and then we discovered 2,000 hours worth of footage in his basement, and we had to pore through that footage, obviously, because you just never know what kind of gems are in there. And so we spent a year going through footage and then a year and a half editing whilst shooting all at the same time. So it all kind of, it was full on.
Worth it. I'd love to take some questions from the audience. Yes, in the black, you stood up. Lots of respect. Shout outs to your crew.
And just one little thing. I had the occasion to meet Ray Charles. Some of that spirit comes back to me today, so I really appreciate this.
So just a big compliment. Any other questions? Yes.
Of all those hundreds of hours, what was the hardest thing to cut that we didn't get to see that you're still with?
Out of all those hours, what was the hardest to cut?
Oh, mate. Well, you spend, there's things that you just can't license, that you'll have into the film right till the very end, and then you realise there's no one alive to license this to us. So there was a lot of that would happen, and a lot of stuff where you just couldn't find out who owned it. So we're talking about hundreds of little tiny things here and there. So I'm sorry, I can't really answer.
Because there are so many.
There is just so much. He's so, people have really, the media has covered him pretty solidly through his whole career. So that afforded us the opportunity to put this together in it was a complicated construction. Because we decided from the beginning we wouldn't do any talking heads like a regular, sort of documentary, somebody saying Quincy's great, he's really good, I love him, that sort of thing. And we decided that we would use only sound bites from Quincy from the past. So we didn't actually interview him. We never sat down, prepared questions and trying to lead him in any way. And so each one of those scenes, wherever we could, we would find audio from that period. Like the Frank Sinatra scene, there's a lot of audio from the 60s in that scene. And when Quincy's in the hospital with his aneurysm, that's from that period. And the Michael Jackson sections. And so that was it's a harder way to do it, and it was like a pretty ambitious sort of idea at the beginning. Let's stick to that and go for that, to try and bring the audience through the decades and on his journey, how he felt about it at the time. So yeah, that was really fun to do, and we found this audio that's never been heard before. It's the Ray Charles audio and the Frank Sinatra audio that was in a vault, and Quincy had never heard it either. And he said at the beginning of the film to Rashida and I, beginning of the filming, he just said, "You guys have got it. I don't want to see it until it's finished." So we showed it to him about 5 weeks ago, and there's all these things in it that he's never seen before, and his old friends that are long gone talking to him essentially. So he was a wreck, and he really, really enjoyed the movie. Thank God.
Can you imagine?
Oh, God.
Yes, at the front.
Quick question. When will this be on Netflix?
First question, when will this be on Netflix?
September 21.
Very soon. Tell your friends.
Canada as well?
Yes, worldwide.
Second question. Will the soundtrack be available?
Yes.
Second question is, will the soundtrack be available to the
It
film?
most definitely will. We're working on that right now. I don't know what platform it's going to be available on just yet, but we are working on getting all of that music. I think it's nearly 100 songs, and I don't know if the credits rolled behind us. Did you see the music? The Quincy's names through all of that. He either wrote it, conducted it, produced it, or did all of those things. And that was a big part of another thing when we started the film. We decided we're not going to get a composer because that's just not. We've got Quincy. His life You could score the whole film with just what he did in the film scoring era of his time. So, but we had 3,000 songs of his. We hired a producer, a musician and producer who was also a great bass player named Jasper Leak, and he organised all of Quincy's music, listened through every single part, broke it out into spreadsheets, and made basically a way for us to be able to search through and say, we want something that's light strings, melancholy, maybe, builds at the end. And he'd be able to say, here's 20 options, these 5 are the ones to go for. There you go. Or we need a blues thing that's just maybe guitar and a little bit of percussion. And you go, here's 10 things he did. And so that's how we built the soundtrack through the film.
So cool. Yes.
Oh, great.
And second, I'm curious if whatever happened to his parents, did you ever get to find out when they died?
Yeah, the question was whatever happened to his parents. His father died sometime in the 70s, and his mother, she lived close to 100 years old. She died in the 90s. But his mother, as you could see, it's still, even if you talk to him today, it's still a point. It's really tough for him to deal with. And when he first watched the movie, that was the thing. It's upsetting for him, like having to deal with these, you could gloss over that quite easily, but that was one of the things that it was like, we have to tell what really happened with him, yeah.
So, yes, in the gold.
I'm not sure, mate.
Lots of questions. Yes, in the gold.
Cheers, mate.
The question is, what is your biggest takeaway from the film and how has it impacted your life?
Well, this has been, like we're talking about, it's one of the most complicated things that I've been involved in on a large scale, and even just down to the minute things. You have to rise to the character's level of perfection, because this is Quincy Jones, so everybody would work so much harder. And I just noticed that the people that are around him, he just demands this higher level. And you can see people rise up to it. As far as the takeaways, well, once you start building a film, there's, you can't really control that much. And especially something like this, we just filmed and just let it happen and just see what happens. And to see the way the film, it's about Quincy, but it also involved race in America, and it became a bigger story than just him. And that's what Quincy was talking to us about too. He was like, oh man, it turned into this other thing. And so that, I love when you can start to see that happening. And, collaborating. Quincy's one of the great collaborators, and to work with Rashida Jones, who's just so much like her dad. It's to be able to collaborate as a director. This is my second film, so first one I directed by myself, and this is my first collaboration, and I was just, I loved it. I've never been so creatively aligned with somebody. Like every step of the way, it was brilliant. So that's my personal experience.
Yes, to the woman who's had her hand up the whole time. Yes, you just turned around. Yes. So,
Did everybody hear that? Okay.
So the question was that first a comment that the film is obviously deals a lot with race, and if you can comment on, or perhaps if he commented on the fact that he had 2 white wives in his life.
That's not really my place, really, but I've heard him talk about it, and people have asked him about it, and he said, well, at that time you weren't allowed to mix it, and you know, this is in bebop, the bebop era, you know, it was very segregated, and so he said that he fell in love. It doesn't matter about race to him. So that's, he, you know, that's he's in love with a person, and that's a person, and that's it. And the other question was,
I think we have so many hands up, so we're just going to take a few more from the audience because really so many people want to ask questions. Yes. Did he want the film to be made, and if so, why?
Yeah, well, so with the film Keep On Keeping On, the one that I worked on previously, we had travelled for a year together, and so we'd become actually quite friendly, and he got to know the whole crew from Keep On Keeping On. And the film came about from a conversation between the executive producer, Jane Rosenthal, and Rashida at a party, where Jane said to Rashida, you need to make a movie about your dad. You know, you have to do it, you know. And Rashida's like, oh, no, yeah, I've been thinking that's going to come. And so Rashida just knew that she had to do this and document her father, and find, with all of these other documentaries that you can find them online from the past, they go through his career. Just, he was born, he did this, he did that, blah, 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 blah. Just all of the accolades. And when I first came on, Rashida was explaining, like, he gets overshadowed by his accolades, like, which is a very bizarre thing, but people don't get to know him. They know all the stuff. And so that was a big part of this movie, was to just get to know the man and get the audience to have that feeling of what it's like to be around him and to be in his presence. And you know, those are those things that get lost once a person passes on. You've got all the stuff, but to know what the person was really like. Yeah, so that was, and to answer your question, Quincy was thrilled, you know, because we were, fortunately, he would say, when we walk into a room with the camera crew, he'd say, hey, this is family. This is my family, where everything's fine, you know. And so he was thrilled that our crew and his daughter were doing this. And like I mentioned before, him calling us up and saying, you got to come to this country, it's going to be a blast. You know, that happens so many times that I was happy about it, but at the same time, I'm like, oh my God, we've got 24 hours to get this together.
Well, I mean, this is only your second film, and they've both already been tremendously successful. Can you give us a teaser as to what's next for you? Have you got it figured out, or going to chill for a while? I'm taking a little bit of a break, but I'm just so wrapped up in the film. I still work as a musician, so I'm still doing gigs and traveling around. But yeah, I'm just keeping my ear to the ground. I've got a few short films that I'm going to be working on next year, and a feature-length film that I'm just starting the beginning process of, but I can't really comment on that just yet. September 21st on Netflix?
Yes.
Even though it's going on Netflix right away, you can still help it get even more noise by voting for it at the festival at tiff.net/vote. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your film.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks.
There's so many